Hey everyone, my name is Charlie, and in this video I'll be providing you with a definitive team composition that will help you tackle the higher difficulties of the game, Champion and Legend, as painlessly as possible. If you wish to skip ahead to that part and skip my intro thoughts, feel free to click on the timestamp I've left in the description below. Of course, all of this is fairly subjective, however after roughly 500 hours of game time, I, along with others that have put in an equal number of hours or more, strongly believe that this is the golden ticket to succeeding in match after match. This is mainly directed at newer and moderately experienced players, and this guide should be valid for all of those new players that will be joining the Vermintide 2 community once the game is launched on PS4 and Xbox One. One of the many aspects I love about Vermintide 2 is that there are so many combinations to select and play with. You can choose between 5 characters that are presented to you in the game. Each of these characters has 3 classes, for a total of 15 classes to choose from, and each class plays very differently. All 5 characters have 1 melee focus class, 1 range focus class, and 1 tanking or tanky class for you to select. So let's go through those right now. So starting off with the first character, his name is Marcus Kruber. You've got 3 classes to choose from for this character. You've got the Mercenary, the Huntsman, and the Foot Knight. So the Mercenary is more melee focused, the Huntsman is ranged focused, and the Foot Knight is tanking focused. The second character you can choose from is Bardin Gorikson. This is the Dwarf class. You can choose between 3. You've got the Ranger, you've got the Ironbreaker, and you've got the Slayer. The Ranger Veteran is basically your ranged focus class. The Ironbreaker is your tanking class, and the Slayer is purely melee. In fact, it's 100% melee because you can't even choose a ranged weapon. So, yeah. Your third character you can choose is Karelian, and she's got 3 classes you can choose from. Your Waystalker, Handmaiden, and Shade. So Waystalker is mainly ranged focused. Your Handmaiden is the tank. It's not as tanky as other classes, but it's definitely the tanking class of Karelian. And then you've got the Shade. This is mainly melee focused, for sure. Your fourth character, this is Victor Saltspire. You've got the Witch Hunter Captain, you've got the Bounty Hunter, and you've got the Zealot. So Witch Hunter Captain is melee focused, your Bounty Hunter is focused mostly on ranged attacks, and your Zealot is your tanking class. And last but not least, your 5th hero is Sienna Forgonassus, Battle Wizard, Pyromancer, and Unchained. Battle Wizard is generally, Sienna is very ranged focused, but the Battle Wizard is the most melee focused of the 3. Your Pyromancer is pretty much 100% focused on ranged, and then you've got your Unchained, which is the tanky class, or the tank class of the 3. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are a total of 32 melee weapons and 22 ranged weapons across all classes to combine however you see fit. Each weapon has its strength and its weaknesses, of course. For example, some weapons are better at crowd control, others have armor piercing, for those big chunky bosses and mobs. Other weapons have shield breaking, and so on. The key is concluding not only which are the best weapons for the tasks at hand, but also which are the most effective weapon combinations. So, in the case of Marcus Kruber, you've got 8 melee weapons to choose from and 4 ranged weapons. The Longbow is actually restricted to the Huntsman class. For Bardin, you've got 8 melee weapons and you've got 5 ranged weapons. Although, just like Marcus Kruber, the dual axes for this class are mainly restricted to the Slayer. For Karelian, you have 7 melee weapons and 4 ranged weapons. And again, the volley crossbow is restricted to the Shade class. For Victor, you have 5 melee weapons and 4 ranged weapons. Here there is no restriction between classes and the weapons. And finally, for Sienna, you've got 4 melee weapons and 5 ranged weapons. Just like Victor, there is no restriction between the weapons and the classes. So let's just jump to the point. What do I and many others consider to be the ultimate team combination? Not only will I be specifying the classes, but also their weapons and the weapon traits, because that's quite crucial. So for the 4th spot, I would highly recommend choosing either, and this is pretty much tied, I would either choose the Huntsman or the Bounty Hunter. The Huntsman does require some more skill. It can be easy at times, or relatively easy to run out of ammo. It's definitely easier to run out of ammo than the bounty hunter. Since the bounty hunter, it's virtually impossible to run out of ammo. And with the bounty hunter, you can one-shot Chaos Warriors with your ultimate ability, which I'll show you later. However, my preference is the Huntsman, since you have the potential to do more damage to bosses, as well as more damage to Chaos Warriors. And it's great all around. It's just a bit trickier to get used to, and it's a bit more difficult. Now for the third spot, I would choose Karelian Stalker. There's an argument for choosing the Shade class, since, well, at least at the time of recording, the dual daggers are pretty much the most powerful weapon in the game. However, the Shade presents complications that the Stalker doesn't. For starters, if you want to maximize your damage with the Shade, you ideally want to be damaging mobs from behind, since you get a damage boost when in this position. Although, I mean, this is very risky, since you will be taking a lot more damage than you'd prefer. Another point is that since the Shade class is pretty much purely melee oriented, you're not really going to be contributing that much to this team, since pretty much everything will be dying before they even get close to the team. So yeah, for sure, I mean, I would highly recommend the Stalker. So for the second position, I would choose Pyromancer. I mean, there's not really much for me to say about this class. It's super OP if played correctly, and I've already uploaded a guide for the Pyromancer, and I highly recommend you check that out if you wish to be as effective as possible with this class. And finally, for the first spot, the Ironbreaker. This is generally considered to be the noob-friendly class. This is because the Ironbreaker is insanely tanky. You generally don't have to worry about dying. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through each of the classes I've selected and the weapon combinations and traits I would recommend for this amazing team. So starting off with the Huntsman. For weapons, I would recommend the Halberd with Swift Slaying. So the Halberd is fantastic because it's a fairly quick weapon and it's relatively long ranged. You don't have to be really that up close and personal with mobs. You can hit them from pretty far away, so you don't risk getting hit as much. And with Swift Slaying, which is critical hits, increases attack speed by 20% for 5 seconds. For your ranged weapon, you want to be using the Longbow. There's an argument for using the handgun, but you have a lot less ammo. You have about half the ammo of the Longbow. It takes really long to reload after every single shot. So unless you're amazing at headshots, the advantage that the handgun has is that it's got some amazing armor piercing. So you can shoot Chaos Warriors in the chest and you're still going to hit them for a lot. That's the main advantage it has. The Longbow, you can hit at the chest. You might hit them, you might not. You generally won't, so you generally have to be aiming for the head. However, the problem with the handgun is that it's so slow at reloading, and you have very little ammo in comparison. When you're clearing hordes, you're not really going to be using your handgun, you're going to be using your halberd. However, with the Longbow, you can actually be destroying hordes as they come to you. And you can recover ammo with pretty much every single shot. So there are two schools of thought in this case. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, but for general use, I would personally recommend the Longbow in this case. I won't be going through all the properties for charms, necklaces, trinkets, and so on. I'll make a guide for each individual class over time, and I'll go in detail through everything. For the talents, I'll just give you a quick look at what you ideally want to be using. I'm going to be using on target, make him bleed, making it look easy, soldier spirit, and blend in. Now, if you're going to be choosing the bounty hunter over the huntsman, I would recommend the following. So for melee weapon, I would recommend the falchion or the falchion. It's just an all-round fantastic melee weapon. It's very fast, it's great in case you get trapped by a horde, and it's very quick at cutting down hordes. I would highly recommend that. As for the trait, there are several talents you can use here. I'm using Swift Slaying personally just to get even more attack speed, but you're not going to be using your melee weapon in this case a tremendous amount, since you pretty much never run out of ammo on your crossbow, so you're going to be using your crossbow most of the time. Okay, so as for the ranged weapon, like I said, I would recommend the crossbow. You could use the volley crossbow as well, which is also great, but right now the normal crossbow is just generally more overpowered than the volley crossbow. So in this case I would go for Scrounger, which is basically critical hits restored to ammunition, which is pretty amazing. So when hordes come your way, you just shoot a bolt and you recover pretty much most of your ammo, if not all of it. And then you can pretty much one-shot, even especially if you hit them on the head, you can one-shot storm vermin, you can one-shot potentially maulers. It's really good. In the case of Chaos Warriors, this is why I recommend the Huntsman more, because the Huntsman with the Longbow or with the handgun, you can actually kill Chaos Warriors much more efficiently than the Bounty Hunter with the crossbow. But if you are going to be choosing the Bounty Hunter, I still recommend the crossbow, because at the end of the day, you have other teammates which can also be killing the Chaos Warriors. So it's not crucial that you have to do every single job. Bounty Hunter talents, basically swift reload speed. You just want to reload as quickly as possible, because remember, with the crossbow you shoot one bolt at a time. So unless you have your blessed shots activated, when you shoot during blessed shots, you don't have to reload for the next shot. But generally, yeah, you're going to be reloading after each shot. So you want to reload as quickly as possible. Then you want Crippling Strike, Prize Bounty, Kills grant temporary health or Righteous Zeal, and Double Shotted. I choose this over Encore, reducing the cooldown, because in my experience, after many hours of playing, as you can see, I've leveled an additional 46 levels on this class. You're not going to be using your ultimate constantly. I mean, it's great and everything, but you're not going to be using it as often as you'd think. However, with the Double Shotted, when you've got your ultimate active and you see a Chaos Warrior, you just shoot them and that's it. You're basically one-shotting Chaos Warriors with that. Just to get a Chaos Warrior out of the way to make everything easier for your team. So I would definitely recommend that in this case. Okay, so for the third spot, I did select Stalker. So let's look at Stalker. For equipment, I would always recommend the Glaive. The Glaive is literally the most OP weapon, melee weapon that Karelian has. Unless you're using Shade, which in that case I would recommend the Dual Daggers, but it's just more complicated to play because it's a riskier class to play. So for beginners and in general really, I would recommend the Glaive for the Stalker above pretty much anything else. At the time of recording, of course, unless they really buff up the Spear or something like that, and it just becomes better all around. But right now, I and pretty much most people would recommend the Glaive. Now, so for the Glaive, it's a pretty slow weapon. It's great for clearing hordes. It's great for... It's got a lot of damage, even for killing Chaos Warriors. It's just great all-round weapon. For the trait, I would recommend Swift Slaying as well, just like the Halberd, because you know you want to be hitting, but you want to be hitting faster if possible. Okay, so for the ranged weapon, I would highly recommend the Swift Bow, because you can pretty much spam it without having to worry. You pretty much won't run out of ammo. We'll go over the talents in a second in order to be able to achieve this. For the Swift Bow, since you don't have to worry about ammo very much, I would preferably go for the Hunter trait, which is critical hits increases attack power by 25% against targets with the same armor class for a short time. So the gameplay style would be, for example, there's a Chaos Warrior, you shoot an arrow at their head or their body, and so from that point on for the next, well, it says a short time, so I assume it's maybe 3 seconds. So for those few seconds, you have 25% more attack power. So you want to whip out your Glaive and just smack him in the head a couple of times, and you can kill a Chaos Warrior that way. So it's an amazing combination. The Glaive with the Swift Bow, with these traits, amazing. Highly, highly recommended. So for the talents, I would go for Critical Chance, Daughter of the Hunt, Vol's Quiver, Kane's Thirst. This is the key one to really never run out of ammo. Your regeneration recovers arrows or bolts. So you're going to be recovering arrows all the time. So you're just going to be spamming arrows constantly. You're going to be like Legolas pretty much. And for the final talent, you want to go for Azrai Focus. Okay, for the second spot, Pyromancer. For the weapon choices, for melee, I would go for the dagger because it really helps with your mobility. You can actually move faster with it. And like I explained in my guide, which you can check out, which I already uploaded, you're not really going to be using your melee weapon very much. There are matches I've played where I've killed maybe one mob with my melee weapon. So yeah, melee weapon isn't crucial in this case for killing anything. Your melee weapon is for mobility and for defense. So as you can see, my traits, I've put everything geared towards defense, since I'm not really going to be counting on killing anything with a dagger. So I've put in push block angle, you know, just for the hell of it, block cost reduction, and parry. For the beam staff, for the trait, you want to be using resourceful sharpshooter. In other words, range critical hits reduces the remaining cooldown of your career skill by 2%. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be spamming with your normal beam toward hordes to get many crits, so you can recover your burning head, which is your ultimate ability. And so you're going to be spamming your burning head. I've already explained all of this in my guide, so I'm not really going to go through every detail now. There's really no point. For the talents, natural talent, dissipate, blazing equilibrium, seething embers, and exhaust. This is the playstyle as a whole for the Pyromancer that I would highly recommend. It's super effective, super efficient. You're just going to be destroying everything. You're just going to be making your team's time just that much easier. And finally, the Ironbreaker. Okay, so for combinations, I would personally recommend the Great Axe with Swift Slaying. Swift Slaying, like I said before, your critical hits increases attack speed by 20% for 5 seconds because it's a pretty slow and cumbersome weapon, so you want to be attacking as quickly as possible. But you've got armor piercing and you've got high damage on this weapon, so if there are Chaos Warriors or tankier mobs, you can just pretty much destroy them with this weapon, so it's really good. You could potentially go for the Axe and Shield, so you've got more stamina shields. I guess you can be tankier, but you're already so tanky, even with a dual axe, that I don't really see much of a point in using this unless you're really starting out in the game, you're kind of not very experienced. Then yeah, you can use the shield and axe. They're great, don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. But if you have a bit more experience, I would still recommend the dual axe or the great axe. Okay, so for ranged weapon, I would recommend the Drake gun, the flamethrower, also known as. This is great because when you have a horde coming at you, even if you get a horde from both sides, from behind and from the front, you can take care of one side with the flamethrower. None of the mobs will really get close to you because everything will pretty much die. While on the other side, maybe you've got the Pyromancer and another class just taking care of the horde on that side. For the trait, I would recommend Thermal Equalizer, which is the weapon generates 20% less overheat. This is great. Normally you would recharge your weapon 4 times to blast your flame. With this trait, you'll be able to blast it 6 times. So it's kind of a no-brainer, really. So that's pretty much it. So like I said, the dream team. We've got Huntsman or Bounty Hunter. Personally, I would go for the Huntsman. You've got your Stalker, Pyromancer, and finally, you've got your Ironbreaker, which is the tank in the group to take care of any big mobs, or maybe you get a Chaos Patrol all of a sudden out of nowhere, a silent Chaos Patrol. And with Barden's ultimate, which actually I'll just show you right now, Impenetrable. Barden taunts all nearby man-sized enemies, gain increased defense, and can block any attack for the next 10 seconds. This is just so overpowered, it's kind of ridiculous. So basically, imagine you get a Chaos Patrol or a Storm Vermin Patrol. All Barden has to do, or the Ironbreaker, he just jumps in there, pops his ultimate, Impenetrable in this case, and then basically all the mobs, all the Chaos Warriors, all the Storm Vermin will start attacking him, and he won't take any damage at all. So the rest of the team can just take their time and kill each mob one at a time, or however you want. So I hope this guide was helpful. It would be great to hear your feedback on this. If you try it as well, it would be great to know how it went for you. Of course, if you believe that there's an even better team composition, please let me know, because obviously I'm always open to suggestions. Maybe suggestions that I'll even try myself with my friends. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Later, everyone.